Let me ask you at a philosophical, at a human level, what do you think about immigration? Illegal and legal immigration from the direction of Mexico to the United States. So we have an estimated 11 million illegal immigrants in the United States and estimated 45 million legal immigrants in the United States.
A few things about that. When COVID hit, there was no shortages of produce in the supermarkets, which means that, illegal immigration is pretty much the backbone of all produce and some of the farming industries out there, most of it. So illegal immigration and illegal workers in those fields are essential workers in a way. I think there's a weird relationship in the United States with some of these workers and how they're demonized and how they're called criminals. I think there was a state out there that passed anti-illegal immigrant worker legislation. The farmers had to look elsewhere for people to show up to work in some of these fields, which basically caused millions of dollars worth of losses for some of these farms. Anywhere you go out there in the United States, you go into the kitchens and there's going to be paisanos there, French, high-level French restaurants. You'll see people from Puebla there that made their way illegally and might have legalized or regularized their way into the country or in a sanctuary city. You go to the service industry, hotels, those are the people changing the blankets. Those are the people in the washrooms. You have them doing jobs that no American wants to do, realistically. And they're everywhere in this country. And they are the backbone of some of these industries that are essential in this country.
Do you think there's a deep sense in which they are American?
I think they're indispensable. And anybody that says they aren't is delusional. If you take every single illegal worker out of the industry in the United States and send them back, like there's a movie out there called Yes, Mexicanos, A Day Without Mexicans, everything would stop. So the relationship is there. People talk about the history of slavery in this country like it's a thing that is in the past. There's endangered slaves in the country right now. People that are paying off their people smugglers because they brought them into this country and they haven't been able to pay that fine or that fee yet, and are basically being held hostage by that here in the United States. So there's slaves right now in the United States. People are talking about it's a historical context.
What do we do about it? How are we supposed to think about it?
We're going to have to rethink how we look at immigration, illegal or legal immigration from Mexico, and how we view Mexico as a foreign country. Your relationship to Canada is one thing. Your relationship to Mexico is another. The foreign policy towards Mexico has been pretty nefarious as far as the United States in a lot of ways. You can go back. There was a student massacre during the Olympics, and the president in turn at that time was on the CIA payroll, and it was a counter-communist type maneuver that we're doing down there. But there's some bloody hands on the U.S. side of some of the things that have been happening in Mexico as far as destabilization and influencing and meddling in foreign policy out there. Most of the guns that are used down there come from the U.S., and that's another interesting aspect and responsibility that people should kind of think about up here.
So there is, on the drug war side, a machine that's fueling the drug war.
There's a giant drug habit up here,
But also a governmental intelligence and military support through the sale of weapons.
I don't know about the sale of weapons, but, there's some we talk about porous borders coming up. There's porous borders also going down. There's a flow of guns going down and munitions, which again, they don't kill anybody by themselves. They get put in the hands of the desperate that are trying to feed a giant drug market to the south, to the north. Mexico has a saying, Mexico, lejos de Dios, pero cerca de los Estados Unidos. Mexico, far from God, but close to the United States, right? And there's definitely a responsibility on both sides. This is no longer a Mexico problem, a U.S. problem. This is a regional problem. And if we don't think of it as a regional problem with our brothers on the southern side of it, and with family, we're related in blood. There's we are Mexico and the United States are like this. but it's become popular in politics to just throw a line, right? And I think we need to get to a place where we can figure out how to make those connections and repair some of the damage done by like just years and years of bad policy on both sides of the border.
Policy and rhetoric, the way we talk about it, the way we think about it, not just the actual policy, but seeing the humanity in the people that are here.
Yeah, it's an easy thing. They're coming to take our jobs is something you hear. There was a state out there that passed some anti-legislation as far as illegal workers on fields, and it led to massive losses. Nobody wanted to show up for those jobs, basically. The people would show up one day and they would come back, and they were doing jobs that people just don't want to do. Are they taking that from the locals? Or are they filling an essential role that we feel guilty about? And the rhetoric around it is more about guilt than anything. I'm an immigrant myself. I've gone through the experience of doing it legally, and I've seen people not do it legally and are in way better places than I am, basically, by going around some of the system. The system itself, the immigration system here in the U.S. is there's something wrong. It's kind of broken. And people coming here illegally are not only, they're looking for a better life for themselves, a better life for people. This whole aspect of vilifying them, and they're like, there's this immigrant did this horrible thing, this immigrant did that horrible thing, and people saying, go back to your country. At the same time, they go to a hotel where all the service staff is from that part of the world, and they're here irregularly, or they go to the Whole Foods and they get some produce there, and it's picked by some of the same people they're vilifying. And again, we need to kind of like think about that and analyze that for ourselves.
The idea of go back to your country and finding the other and having a disdain and a hate towards the other. Ever since I had a recent conversation with Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, I got to hear a few things from, let's say, unfriendly messages from white nationalists, and I got to learn about this world. I continue on the journey of learning, which is the idea that the United States, this country, should look a certain way, should have a certain skin color, should have a certain religion, and everything else is a pollution, is a poison to this. I made it sound hateful right now, but they usually frame it in a positive way, like the purity. I'm sure Hitler also phrased everything in a positive way, especially in the 1930s, about the purity of Germany. But the reality of the United States, and one of the things that makes it at least the ideal of the United States, is the soup, the mix. Unlike so many nations I've traveled to, there's the diversity, the good kind of diversity is what makes this country great. And I think it needs to be based on the accepting the different subgroups that make up the United States versus trying to purify it. And I think Mexican immigrants is just another flavor of saying this is the other. Let's reject the other.
Yeah, I saw that interview, by the way. That was that you showed amazing restraint in that interview. My experience, and I came up here again. Trump was elected when I came up here, so it was a weird time for me as far as being an immigrant and the immigrant experience for myself. By both being, basically the ones that were talked about in that way, and also having a bunch of my friends who were very conservative and wearing some of those MAGA hats around me and like, hey Ed, like well, I mean, I'm a guest here, so I have to, but it's a balancing act is what I've been looking at it as. On one side there's the woke side of it, which everything goes, and then on the other side is like, let's hold on to some of these things that make us who we are. On my end, I want to get to a place where I can smoke a joint, concealed carry a firearm, be at my gay best friend's wedding, and I want the government not to say anything about it. And I think there's parts in the United States here that kind of feel the same way, but there's extremes on both sides that are pulling you to one side or the other. And I've seen more of the United States than most Americans. I'm in a different state every weekend, so I get to go to. I'm going to Tampa in a bit tomorrow. Then I'm going back to California. Then I'm going to Tennessee later. in Kentucky. So I get to see all types of people and all types of mentalities and ways that people live. And this country is more diverse than most would think, if you only see it through the lens of television or media. What I keep seeing out there that for me is like the reason I came here, I guess. And a lot of the reasons that I feel a vested interest in this country, not just because, again, my kid's American. So I have a very, very big interest in this country doing well. But the thing I see is there's still the opportunity and the ability to do something with yourself and opportunities out there for people like me that come here with nothing. I came here with an experience base, a truck,
and some demons.
And and a bunch of demons in a bag. And I'm here with you talking right now about some of those experiences. And
to another immigrant.
to another immigrant. And both of us are reaching people out there that, might haven't heard a voice of people like us that come here with our own bag of demons. But where else in the world can two people like us have a conversation with an audience like us and not be shot outside of this because of the stuff we're saying?
Yeah, listen to with love and respect, not derision.